Hello, welcome to another version of the Mexican Soccer Show Live. We've got a special edition for you guys tonight. It's the review special. I guess I said special a little too many times there, but that probably emphasizing
Pretty
how
special.
special. Yeah, that's exactly. It's emphasizing how special it is. So today we've got myself, Wiso B, B Squad Wiso over here, Cesar Hernandez, and we also have Naib. Naib, how are you doing?
Good, Cesar. Good, Jason. It's good to be here in December 2014, about to close the year with already a Apertura champion and going into the Clausura with all the moves. It's been a solid year. I mean, of course, the World Cup wasn't, it finished as like all the other World Cups have finished since 1994. But I mean, there's an improvement from 2013. 2013 was a disastrous year with Chepo de la Torre in the command of El Tri. And all that stuff. I mean, Chicharito went to Real Madrid, Raul Jimenez went to Atletico, Jonathan Dos Santos and Giovanni Dos Santos are in Villarreal. It's been a packed 2014.
No, I agree. There's definitely plenty to look forward to. And then going over to the captain of optimism, we have Jason Marquez. How you doing, Jason? Sorry, that was kind of a jab right there at you. I'm sorry, man.
I could take it, man. I like that. I like, like maybe this is my new calling, right? Maybe I need that spur and to be like a little motivating, like, oh, I'm going to be optimistic now. Okay, I can do this. So I'm just gonna come and we're gonna put this big, pretty Christmas bow on Mexican soccer in 2014, and it's gonna be a beautiful thing today. So here we go.
I agree. I wish I had a bow, but all I have is a small little Christmas tree in my background over there. I do have a few presents if you guys could see, and there are most definitely some bows on those. All right, so let's get straight into it. All right, so I gave these guys a little bit of a script. I wanted them to, well, I guess not a script per se, but just I asked them a few questions about this year specifically for the Liga MX and for the national team, and I wanted to hear their feedback. So first we're going to go over to Jason. My first question to the guys was favorite players for the year. So it doesn't have to be, it could be one player, it could be two players, it could be five if you really want to talk about five players. But Jason, who are some of those players and/or players?
I got two for you.
You got two.
My first would have to be Andres Guardado. This is someone who in 2013 was a disaster, to just put it lightly. He, I mean, for all the failings of the Chepo era, this was one player you looked at through all those national team games. It was just a complete disappointment. At the club level, it was a disappointment at Valencia. The move that came there, in having the position, is he a midfielder? Should he be at left back? There were a lot of questions about where he should be, and then moving into the national team, should he even be in the World Cup roster moving into 2014? Lo and behold, he comes in and becomes an integral player, probably the most important player on that World Cup squad, or at least one of the two or three most important players. Moving into that central midfield role was one of the most shocking things to me, but he performed so well. So for me, Guardado was one of my favorite players 2014 for kind of that turnaround story that I didn't see coming. And the other player I mentioned was Isaac Brizuela. I just enjoy watching him so much, and kind of for me, seeing him play at Atlas a little bit, and then moving to Toluca, and then just emerging towards the end of 2013 and moving to 2014, just as a power in the Liga MX, and becoming kind of almost a staple in the national team. So I'm really excited about where he's going. So he was one of the real players of the year for me as well.
I definitely agree with you with Guardado. Actually, I have Guardado. I'm going to be a little bit of a spoiler. I'm going to say that he was one of my biggest surprises of the year, but I'll go into the details later. But I definitely agree with you with Guardado, and it almost seemed like the way we were talking about Guardado at this point last year is entirely different than the way that we're talking about him right now, and I think that's something to truly consider for Guardado. Naib, what were some of your favorite players from this year?
I think I've sort of separated it, in two categories. I think one of the categories is young stars that are in the making, are up and coming, and the other one is just more solid, the typical El Tri call-ups that have occurred. I mean, I think Hector Herrera, I think his World Cup was sensational. And his moment in FC Porto is magnificent in the sense that he's the leader of the midfield in Julian Lopetegui's FC Porto, and it's a big step. I mean, it's uncommon to see a Mexican midfielder shine in a Champions League. We the last successful stories have been Chicharito and Rafa Marquez. Rafa Marquez all the way and winning a Champions League. So seeing Herrera develop into this formidable midfielder in Europe has been one of the stories. I also like Gallito Vasquez, just because I think in the World Cup he was, everyone was saying, oh, he's short for that central defensive midfielder position. But I think that, he was a big miss against Netherlands. It was unfortunate not having Gallito's speed in that round of 16 game. Carlos Vela, it's always a good player to watch, and now even more because he's playing for El Tri, Carlos Vela. And a player that I liked watching live a lot has been Héctor Moreno. His time in Espanyol, it's about to end. I think probably he's going to go to another club. So, I mean, those are the 4 players. And then youngsters, I really like Chucky Lozano from Pachuca and Jordan Silva from Toluca. I think those are our future bright stars for El Tri, and we'll see how they do in this clausura.
Yeah, good point too. I feel like I should have brought up some of the younger players too. But now, I mean, I only have 2 players. Naive, you went above and beyond right there. If I was a teacher, I'd be giving you an A, and I'd be giving Jason. Well, I'd give Jason a B because I only have I have like 1.5, so that's like a C for myself. But that's an excellent point with some of the youngsters. I was really, especially with Lozano, Irving Lozano. He scored one of the most bizarre, I believe that was Lozano, right? He scored one of the most bizarre and strange goals earlier this season. I believe he headed the ball, and then he somehow headed it to his own foot at the same time, and then he just knocked it straight in. It was such a beautiful goal that I wish I was like agile and like healthy enough to be able to recreate that. But that's definitely something that stands out when I think of Chucky Lozano. All right, so I guess my turn. I'm going to mention some of my favorite players from the year. Easy, I think Vela, that's definitely an easy one. He's definitely stood out within La Liga. He got, he was nominated as one of the Player of the Month recently, and I think earlier I did some research. It looked like he got it in December as well from last year. So it definitely says so much about how he's doing, especially when he was also voted as one of the top 3 strikers in Spain. From I think it was from the yearly awards that they had. And also in him returning to the national team, the immediate impact that he had. But just for fun, I'm going to mention Blanco as one of my favorite players of the year. Just I'm not saying this because of his. It's not about how he plays. It's just how purely entertaining the guy was. He was just, for me, he was a favorite player of mine, just because of how I loved watching every second of him when he was on the pitch. And it was just hugely entertaining, especially in his last game that he had with Puebla, that 3-3 game against Santos. He was just hugely entertaining. And also the fact that I was a little too giddy and I was able to sneak in a photo with him when he was in Dallas. And I don't think he was too happy about that.
So just to clarify, Cesar, so you picked the 40-year-old man. And you picked the guy who, for 2014, decided to not play for the entire summer during the biggest event of the year. Just to clarify, those are your 2 guys.
And that is right. That is most definitely. They're not. I never said these were correct answers. I'm just choosing from my heart, Jason. This is from my heart, man.
Fair enough.
All right. So let's go over to our favorite and worst moments of the year. So this time I'll go to Naive first. Favorite and worst moments of the year.
I mean, I think I can connect the best, kind of the best game and the best moment together. But I really like the Mexico-Croatia game. I think going into that match, you saw Luka Modric, Rakitic, these great midfielders, in Croatia, and then Mandzukic up top, and you thought, oh well, Croatia has a good legitimate shot of beating El Tri. But El Tri won easily, took over the match pretty well with Guardado having a good game there, even scoring. So I think that was one of my favorite moments of the 2014 year, and one of the worst. I'd have to say, Pulido's situation right now. Kind of, a great player, but not actually playing since the World Cup. Wish the circumstances would be better and actually see him play. I think a player of his caliber has to start playing because, or else he's gonna be like a forgotten case.
No, I definitely agree with you there. And it seems like nowadays he's practicing more so of his Italian than his actual soccer skills, and that and his Instagram skills as well. All right, Jason, what were your favorite and worst moments of the year?
My favorite moment of the year would have to be the monumental and trophy-winning draw at the Nemesio 10 for La Máquina in the CONCACAF Champions League final.
Yeah.
So you gotta mention CONCACAF Champions League and something, because this is very important stuff. So that's a trophy right there. No matter how we got it, that is a trophy.
It's a trophy, yeah. It's a trophy nonetheless.
Counts. We can't take it away. We have it now. So whatever you want to say, that is absolutely my favorite moment of the year, which is depressing. And the worst moment of the year would have to be Hector Moreno's injury in the Netherlands match. That was, I don't know, like right before halftime, that injury brought the instability to the back line that I think spelled a lot of the doom for the rest of the match, where we're left defending the rest of the match, and Moreno not out there really was troubling, and then not seeing for the rest of the year was kind of disappointing, and the possibility of him making a big transfer in the fall not coming to be because of that was kind of disappointing as well. So that was my worst moment of the year.
It's definitely disappointing. Although it seems like he will be, hopefully, I mean, there seems to be rumors everywhere that he will be making a trade soon, and he is now, thankfully, back in full health and training with Espanyol once again. So my favorite and worst moments, I'm gonna go with Naive actually for the favorite moment. Was when we beat Croatia. Mexico beat Croatia 3-1, and I think that was just a favorite moment of mine too, just because that was the only World Cup match that I watched with my family. All the other games, I was just at home and just screaming by myself. So that was the one. So it was like something a little special for me to be watching that game with my family. And I think the worst actually is like similar to Moreno's injury was the injury to Luis Montes. I was there for that game, and it was such a drastic change in the mood because it was immediately after he scored. And then just minutes later, he injured himself, and it was obvious how awful that injury was for him. So I think that was one of the more low points for me. Was that injury that happened to Montes earlier this year? So we're gonna go over to the biggest letdown of the year. So this time we'll go to Jason. Jason, what was your biggest letdown?
Yeah, I'm looking at the Netherlands match. I mean, obviously, this is a huge letdown in the way that ended. But I'm gonna back it up a little bit and not go with the controversial penalty call. That certainly wasn't a penalty, but we can all digress on that by now. But I back it up to just and say like the final 25 minutes of that match, where really for me what happened is, after that water break, the technical water break that occurred, the midfield for Mexico just fell apart. They were tired. They were unable to retain possession. Herrera and Guardado really slipped. Aquino came in and really couldn't get it done. They just couldn't hold possession, couldn't hold the ball. So, that final 25 minutes was all defending without Moreno back there. And you look at the end result of constant defending against that Netherlands squad, where, Marquez was under constant pressure to stop this constant attack from Netherlands. So, in some ways, it was an inevitable result because of the way that the midfield just kind of fell apart in those last 25 minutes. So the biggest letdown for me was that what was the strength coming from those first games was really just powering Mexico forward, and that midfield really kind of just fell apart down the stretch in that last World Cup match.
It was most definitely a letdown for myself. I was actually camping when that game was happening. And I had to go because it was my friend. He wanted his bachelor party to be at a campsite. Not saying that we had stuff going on at the campsite. We just it was just us and the guys out in nature. We were fishing and whatnot. But I actually made them go down for a little bit to it's like a town about 20 miles south. And I had my laptop and then I had this like portable Wi-Fi thing. So we're out in like the middle of nowhere, California, and I was like screaming at my laptop, like at my friend's like bachelor party. I think I kind of ruined the mood after I was just depressed immediately after the game. Anywho, that I just felt like talking about that. Naive, what was your biggest letdown of the year?
I mean, I think just to follow up from what Jason said. I mean, at least in the friendly against the Netherlands in Amsterdam, Piojo did some changes with that midfield. With putting a 4-4-2 and putting Reyes and Gallito. So it kind of he learned the lesson from that match. But going back to the letdown thing, I think I don't know how to decide, but I keep Chivas has been a letdown since 2012, I'd say, after all that mess around they did with Cruyff. But I think in 2014, I mean, the fact that Chivas really doesn't have a presence in the Mexican national team, and I'm not saying that Chivas. I think a healthy Chivas is a stronger Mexican national team, in my opinion. Because the players come with this ideology, oh, we're the Mexican team, we're winning matches, but Chivas is nothing right now. There's a state of crisis that has led the team to be in relegation zone and battling, the Veracruces and the Pueblas and all these unstable teams that are usually unstable in Mexican football. And you have this Chivas, who quote unquote is one of the most winningest teams in Mexico. And I think Chivas is a letdown in general because of the decisions from its owner, like Jorge Vergara, who just changes different projects every 6 weeks or so, and changes coaches every four weeks or in anything. And it's just not right for Mexican football. I think a healthy Chivas is good for Liga MX, and I think hopefully in 2015 stuff will get fixed with Nestor de la Torre and Jose Manuel Chepo de la Torre.
Yeah, especially since Chivas, they do have that talent up front, but just nothing seems to click, and it only seems to click when the players decide to leave the team. That's when they seem to do well, and I don't know if it has to do with Chivas. I don't know if it has to do with, I don't know what it is, but they were definitely one of my letdowns for me. They only won 3 games during the most recent season. No one was really scoring. It was completely underwhelming soccer. It was really like uninspired every time you would watch them.
I mean, and you think about it. I mean, the stadium's always it's all red, but there's no one sitting on the seats basically. I mean, and the Estadio Life has a nice start, because I remember Manchester United went to play to the stadium, and I remember Chicharito scored a goal for Chivas, scored the first ever goal in Omni Life. And, and at that moment, there was some sort of stability, they could at least boast and say, oh, look, one of our strikers was signed by Manchester United because so-and-so of the numbers. But now, not even that. They can't even, there hasn't been a player that has been as impressive as Chicharito. There are players that have the capacity. I mean, I think Marco Fabian is a clear example, but it's just nothing. Nothing happens. I mean, I think Jason can talk a little bit about how Marco Fabian's season hasn't been. It's been lost after the World Cup. Something happened to Fabian.
Yeah, it's hard to say like where he kind of just slipped up, but yeah, he hasn't been the same player since the World Cup, and he's just been really inconsistent. You just see him come in and out of games, and that's been his rep the whole time that he's been with Chivas. But, I think, it's hard to put too much on Fabian for this past season because Cruz Azul was putting so much on him. Cruz Azul needed him to do so much that the team itself had a lot of dysfunction in the way they were going forward and with their attack. So leaning too heavily on Fabian is a problem, and I think that was a lot of the issue with Chivas as well, that he was being leaned on so heavily, and I don't think he's one of those guys you want to be that guy. You don't want him to be your guy that you need to perform. You want him to be a complementary player who's working with other players, and I mean, for me, with Chivas, the issue always comes back to the instability of the program itself. You have the constant manager changing, and Chivas, like over the past 5-6 years especially, has been like overwhelmingly young. So you have this group of young players who are getting playing time, and it's great to see them playing, but you have a constant manager change and a constant need to perform for a new manager in different ways. So, I mean, with that, there's just no consistency of message. So you constantly have a new manager coming in, changing everything around. It's a mess because there's no stability.
And speaking of that, I mean, honestly, like, to me, it wouldn't seem too surprising, Brizuela being who he is, if he was to come in and he honestly wouldn't, if he were to not do that well. And that wouldn't come as a shock to me, just because of who Chivas are and what has happened in the past to certain players. But I know we could probably talk about Chivas forever. And I'm sure we'll revisit them again somehow soon. But let's move on to the biggest surprise of the season, but of the year. I forgot who I went to first last time, so this time I'm just going to go right over to Jason.
That sounds good. So biggest surprise, if not Guardado, who we mentioned earlier, and I was Cesar is going to talk about a little bit as well. I'd have to say, in similar mode, like one of those players coming to the World Cup that just kind of filled you with trepidation, because he was going to be an integral part of that back line, would have to be Maza Rodriguez. Coming in, like, this is a player you think, like, I've been saying for years that, we need Reyes in there. Maza needs to sit down. He's just not the player anymore. But, I was wrong. Like he came in and Maza stepped up and he got it done. And he was excellent in the World Cup, and he has been ever since. Cruz Azul, just a really solid player. So, all credit to Maza. He's getting it done. Biggest surprise for me, I did not see that coming.
Yeah, I didn't want Maza back there either. Like, I definitely thought, before the World Cup even started, I thought, like, I don't care what form Reyes is in to row him in instead of Maza.
That's right.
But he did so well, and in fact, I think he was one of our better defenders, for a couple of those games, and it was extremely impressive. And I mean, when I was watching the team train, you could tell too, and I think we've all discussed this before too. He truly is a leader on the team, and you forget that you're like, oh, that's right, he was actually the captain for a little bit. And I don't know how I forgot that, but like, you forget that he was actually captain of the team for quite some time. He's a great leader. Yeah, sometimes he can commit some pretty erroneous things in the back line, but no, he's much better, I think, than we give him credit for.
Yeah, and just to add, to what you said about Maza, last week, the game Cruz Azul, Real Madrid and Marrakesh, I think the best player in Cruz Azul was Maza. Even though he was a 4-0, but that attitude, that personality, being sure with the pass. I never thought I was going to see Maza Rodriguez passing the ball correctly, when in his Chivas days. But, there's this tempo that he has with the ball now that, it's important, and considering, he will be an important player, I think, in 2015 for El Tri, at least for 2015, with Copa America and Gold Cup, but his game against Real Madrid was an impressive one. And just to go with my big surprise, I think Ronaldinho to Querétaro was just, I think that I didn't see that coming at all.
I didn't believe it. When it happened, I was like, yeah. When I heard rumors, I was like, yeah, sure, Ronaldinho. Yeah, he's coming. Whatever.
Yeah. So it's just Ronaldinho coming to Querétaro of all teams in Mexico. It's been an interesting story for Querétaro. It's put the team on the map, but at the same time, there's complications with a signing like Ronaldinho, because there's certain things that Ronaldinho does that the rest of the teammates don't do. For example, right now, Querétaro started preseason training on December 8th, and Ronaldinho is not scheduled to report until after Christmas. What does that say to the other players, to the Yasser Coronas, to the Ricardo Sorios? Be like, why can't he, come at the same time as we show up for the training? So, there's complications with that. And now, of course, Camilo Zambeso will be out for Querétaro for the whole Apertura. And I think, excuse me, it's will this be, I always get confused with my aperturas and clausuras, yo.
Clausura.
Clausura.
Yeah,
so this is the start of the year.
It's like aperturas, A begins, it's the exact opposite, so it's in the middle. That's my mnemonic device.
So, I think Querétaro, it's building on this project, but there's its pros and its cons with a signing like Ronaldinho. But certainly, they sold a lot of jerseys already. They've become renowned in the world, and I think that's a big step forward for a club that was absolutely undiscovered. Only the real Liga MX fans knew what Gallos Blancos was. But now there's people in Europe, people in Africa, people in Asia that know what Gallos Blancos is all about.
I guess.
No, I definitely agree. I definitely did not see Ronaldinho coming over to the league, and you could see the impact that he had too. Or when they introduced him at halftime, I forget which match it was exactly, but just everyone, like the crowd was just going crazy. He just like went out like at halftime, kind of like waved to everybody, went back, but it was insane the response that he got. And that the attendance that would follow for every Gallos Blancos game, that Ronaldinho was playing at. But yeah, he was definitely. It was a big surprise for me. Mine is Rob Schneider like in Tigres. No, actually, no, it's not. No, like we talked about earlier, I think Andres Guardado was definitely one of them. As I mentioned, a year ago we were never having this conversation. I think for a while the conversation that we're having about Guardado, it was almost this like weekly kind of like slightly below average performances that he was having for Valencia. He was never, I don't think he was ever that, from the games that I watched, he was never terrible for Valencia. But at the same time, he looked a little awkward at the position that he was playing for them, almost like a left wing back. And he never truly really looked, I think, that comfortable back there. And it took him so long for him to eventually score his first goal for the team. And then when he made that move over to Bayer Leverkusen, he was completely ineffective over there as well. And I was definitely very surprised, when he was not only brought up to the national team again. I thought he was just being brought up just for experience alone. You're like, oh yeah, sure, he'll be here just for experience. He'll help out some of the guys. But when he was given significant playing time, that's when I was a little surprised. But he proved to be an excellent player, and he's proven to be excellent now at PSV, where he's been the player of the game. I believe he got it. I think it was last weekend, and that definitely wasn't his first time.
In total it's 3. I think he has 3 of those.
Yeah, I think on Instagram, he has like an Instagram photo too, where it's just like him smiling with all of his like man of the match, little like plates that they have given him. So he's definitely come out of nowhere as well, and he's only 28 years old as well, so he could continue being a leader in the team for quite some time. And Naif?
Yeah. I mean, just to add, I think when the call-up happened and before the World Cup, I think it was Tom who said that, Guardado is the if you want to have an example of a player that has overcome obstacles to achieve his goal of building a career, of forging a career in Europe, that's Andres Guardado. He's an excellent example because he left Atlas at a young age. He went to Deportivo. He even went down to second division with Deportivo and still played with the club. And then after his time in Deportivo, he headed to Valencia. And as you mentioned, Cesar, as well as Leverkusen. But I think the problem in Valencia and Leverkusen is that he never felt trust from the coaches. And in PSV right now, he's even captain sometimes.
That's right.
So there's a lot of trust in him, and that lifts him up a little bit even more. I think that's what Piojo did with him in the World Cup. Gave him responsibilities because he's 28 and he has all this experience in Europe. And now he's actually, being captain and being the leader of one of the historic clubs in Europe.
I believe he mentioned as well, I don't know if it was during the World Cup, after the World Cup, that he mentioned that almost as if the chances that Piojo gave him kind of like, it was almost like a little bit of a catalyst. It gave him like a little bit of a push, and now he felt like it's almost like he's getting a second win now in his career, and it's definitely shown. And it's definitely shown in the pitch as well. And I'm glad that he's doing much better than he was doing in Valencia, because it was just some sort of weird purgatory in Valencia. Like, yeah, it was kind of cool that he was playing in Valencia, but he wasn't. I don't think he was getting the minutes that he wanted. And I think, as I mentioned, I don't know if he was the best left, or he's best at being utilized as a left wing back, in the squad. All right. So now we're gonna go over. one more surprise for me. I forgot about this. Was Tecatito. Tecatito was. I mean, we've talked about it, but he was apparently overweight and had problems with management. And I thought, and I predicted too. I was like, well, his career is going to go nowhere, in the Netherlands. And suddenly now he's got 5 goals, and I want to say 2 or 3 assists so far.
Somewhere in that region, yeah.
Yeah, in the Eredivisie. Like I wrote, and right now he has more goals than Chicharito. He has more goals than Raul Jimenez. He has more goals than Hector Herrera, Giovanni Dos Santos, Javier Aquino. But people always talk about those players before Tecatito. This 1-year-old kid that we have. So he definitely caught me off guard, and I honestly did not expect him to have as good of a season as he has so far for 20.
Yeah, I mean, and just to add, I don't know if Jason can add something after what I said, but I mean, the thing with Tecatito that's impressive is that he told Fernando Schwartz after that incident that supposedly he was overweight, and he told Fernando Schwartz that he was really excited that he was going to be a dad, and that the fact that he's going to become a dad gave him more responsibility, and that he had to take big chances with the opportunity that he has. Because I think Tecatito was always this rebellious player in Monterrey that knew that he had quality, that knew that he was really good, and that he wanted that exit as soon as possible. He was not going to wait, like all the other players wait and wait and wait. He was really, what's the word, loud to his agent. I think his agent is from the Netherlands. And so, he got him that spot in Twente, and now he even has, he signed a new contract, and I think the transfer clause is now upgraded to like 25 million or around that region, because Twente knows that there's teams from England and teams from Spain that are already interested in Tecatito.
Yeah, most definitely. Go. Sorry, Jason.
No, I mean, that's the thing, like, with someone his age, like, moving over, that makes you so nervous at that point where is he really ready? He hasn't really established himself. I mean, he had the breakout season with Rayados, but, like, it wasn't where he was really the consistent player over time that was, really dependent upon all the time in Monterrey. So making that move, you get really nervous. Like, is he going to get lost in the shuffle? Is he going to be one of those players that skips around Europe team to team and never really latches on for years and really loses some time that he really needs playing? So, like, that's definitely a huge surprise and a huge win for Mexico right there. Him, obviously, and the Mexican national team, and that he has really latched on and is doing so well. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and I hope he does well, because I think he's definitely one of the players for our future, and I wouldn't be too surprised if he even makes a move within the next, I wouldn't say next season. I think he still needs to spend another season or two at Twente, but maybe a few years from now for him to make a move to a much bigger club. And I'm really excited to see him. He's still a very young kid. I'm excited to see his potential. And I mean, from the games that I've seen, he takes risks, and I think that's really important for the national team right now, is that we need players taking risks the way that he does. All right, so now we're gonna. Oh, sorry, go for it. Sorry, no, go for it.
Just quick, Cesar, just to so our listeners or our audience can know. I mean, we gotta pay more attention to the Eredivisie in the Netherlands, because I mean, Tecatito's having a successful run, Guardado's having a successful run, but let's not forget about Salcido's run with PSV, Massa Rodriguez's run with PSV, and also Hector Moreno, who left Pumas for AZ Alkmaar at a young age, and now look at where Moreno is. Moreno still, Espanyol is not a big team, but I'm pretty sure that a couple of weeks maybe he might end up in a bigger club with more, notoriety and so forth. But I think it's a good league for Mexicans to make that jump to Europe. Because we're seeing with Raúl in Spain, he's taking a while to get accustomed to the European lifestyle, the European game, which is really fast. And it would have been better for Raúl to maybe be in a Twente or a Utrecht or one of these teams.
Go Ahead Eagles. That's my favorite team name. Their divisions. Go Ahead Eagles.
And then from there, once he's there, establish a name for himself, then he can make a jump to a bigger club in Europe.
No, I most definitely agree. And it is obviously it's a very respectable league as well. So it's not like you're making a significant downgrade as well. The Eredivisie is extremely well respected, especially when you have teams like Ajax, that you'd be competing against. So that's definitely an excellent point. All right, so let's go to the best and the worst games. All right, Naib, what are your best and worst games?
My best game, I think. The best game I think was the Ascenso MX final between Coras Tepic and Necaxa. I think that came really out of nowhere. Came out of nowhere. It was a game that I wasn't expecting to watch, but that night there was no other game going on, so I turned on the TV and look at what I found. I found this amazing game with players. Bofo with his funny haircut. Lorejo, whatever his name was, in Necaxa playing a great game, so that's my best game, I think, along with the Mexico-Croatia, which I mentioned a while ago. And worst games, I think I have to say the Tigres Toluca and the Liguillas. I mean, those 0-0s. It was pretty, an idea that. How can a team make a final without even scoring a goal? I mean, I know that's the rules.
No, they made the final.
Yeah, they made the final, but it's not. You qualify to the final by not scoring goals, and that's how Tigres got into the final. Of course, the position in the table and all that, but I just don't comprehend it sometimes. And I didn't like the Mexico-Belarus game. I think, you come after the win against the Netherlands and then you lose to Belarus. And I know there was a bunch of changes in the lineup, and you can say that Piojo was experimenting, but you just can't lose to Belarus when you come after a win like the one in Amsterdam. That was a little bit bad. You witness, I think that game in Belarus, you witness some players that are Mexican national team caliber and some that are not Mexican national team caliber, and I think that was a bad game for El Tri this year.
I think the Belarus game, you could just blame it on the cold, right? I think one of my favorite things is whenever they would cut to the players on the bench. They look like I don't know. It was
with their cobijas,
Yeah, it was all them. It was like multicolored ones too. It was pretty good. But the cobija, and also like they had like the beanies, and like it looked like it was like -30, not. I think it was 30 degrees, but I'm sure. All right, Jason. Jason, what was the best and worst games for you?
So kind of playing off a little bit of what Naib mentioned there as well. My best game for me was a Croatia win. Honestly, it was a game that I didn't see Mexico coming out with a victory in. That midfield for Croatia terrified me, and I didn't see it going well, and it did. It went perfectly. So, best win. Hands down, just because of my expectations going into it, especially, and obviously the meaning of it. The worst for me, I actually differ from what Naib said. Like, I actually enjoyed those Toluca Tigres games, and like I don't need goals. I liked it. I like watching Tigres play, and they don't need to score for me. They're good. They're good to go. I wish they would throw less punches though, and that kind of leads into my worst game, would be the Apertura final. The second leg in Azteca was a disaster. I hated the result, obviously. It was disgusting. The officiating was a nightmare, and just the play. The play of Tigres, the play of America was so physical that the official was forced to step in and be a part of the action. So just the entire game was a nightmare, and then all those red cards, so the whole second half of the game was just kind of negated. That was just a real big disappointment.
Yeah. I think as a Liga MX fan, I was a little let down by the final. But like if I didn't know anything about Mexican soccer and I watched that final, I would have immediately become a fan of the league because just because of how ridiculous the whole affair was. There was a laser pointers, there was a red cards. It was such a if I was an outsider, I would have found it like fascinating to see that final. As a Liga MX fan, it left a bad taste in my mouth. It was not the way that I wanted to see it end. But I think as an outsider,
I see, like I'm looking at Twitter when I'm watching the game, you see all these casual fans, like more MLS fans, like watching the final and saying like, oh, like you only see these things in Mexico, like all this craziness. And it's just kind of like, I love the Liga MX because of the quality and like the ridiculous like sideshow nature that game became kind of undermines that a bit for me, and that's why it really left a bad taste in my mouth, and also, of course, the end result.
No, that's an excellent point as well. That the Mexican soccer isn't all about the sideshow. And there actually is a significant amount of strength and skill in the league.
Yeah, I have to agree a little bit with what Jason says. I think all those red cards at a point they got a little bit. It did get a little bit frustrating because you don't really see what the real essence of Liga MX. The competitiveness. At one point America easily went over Tigres, and of course the advantage of Miki Arroyo's goal, which was a beautiful goal when everything was 11 against 11.
Yeah, Arroyo was fantastic that game. Yeah.
That's the essence of Mexican football. And coincidentally, is an Ecuadorian, and there's an influx of Ecuadorian and Colombian footballers coming into Liga MX. But that's the thing. I mean, it missed the essence. And of course, if you know the details like we do, Turco Mohamed was already out as America coach, but he still won the title and left the bar high for the next coach, who will be Gustavo Matosas. So, I mean, there was a lot of out of the field stuff going on as well before the final, and of course with the Tigres fans and trying to invade the Azteca, and there was like 20,000 of them. That's special as well. Seeing those details that Tigres considers itself to have one of the best fan bases in Mexico, and in that game they proved it.
No, I guess you guys both do have a good point there, especially when that's supposed to be the showcase, the final game. So there will be a lot of people who don't traditionally watch any of the other games who will turn into that final game, and then they see that, and perhaps some stereotypes they do see or assume in their mind, those will continue following through. After they see that there's a bunch of red cards and that there's laser pointers and that there's a coach that's going to be fired, afterwards. so you got that is actually an excellent point. So for me, actually, I didn't think anybody was going to mention the Ascenso final, but no, Nayib mentioned it, and that was, man, I had no real emotional ties to either team, but that was one of the best games I've seen. And I think it was probably one that it might have been the best game I've seen so far this year. The fact that that Coras were up 3-1, with less than 15 minutes left in the game. Necaxa scores twice. There's 2 more goals, and then it ends up 5-4 in the penalties at the end. It's like I don't know. It was one of the more dramatic endings that I had ever seen, in a recent soccer game. And I think another good one. And I know I mentioned this earlier, but man, I really enjoyed that one, the final game from the season from Puebla and Santos, that 3-3. Maybe I just have a little bit of a man crush on Blanco for whatever reason, even though he was a villain for so many years. But man, I enjoyed that 3-3 match so much, and just that last minute penalty kick that Blanco had. I don't know. That was a really fun game. For me, the worst game, I could think of something that'd be different, but if I'm gonna stay true to myself, it's the Holland game. We discussed it. I just wasn't in a good mood for a couple days, which is weird for me because I have this constant weird goofy smile on my face. So it was weird to really interact with me after that match against Holland. All right. So we're gonna go over to the final section over here. So we're gonna have predictions for next year. It could perhaps even be, say somehow you are you're Piojo and you're gonna list out resolutions. Maybe you can mention your resolutions for the year. What are your predictions and/or your resolutions? You don't have to do both. You can just do one. We're gonna go over to you, Jason.
So I don't make resolutions. Mr. Pessimism.
You don't make resolutions.
Do well with those kind of things.
Wait, let me cut in. When was the last time you made a resolution? A New Year's resolution?
Early days, I'd say. I've long given up on making myself promises. It doesn't work out for me. I just expect the worst and just keep moving along. So to stick with that theme, one of the things I see for Mexico in this coming year, I'm kind of worried about the summer. I'm worried about Gold Cup, Copa America, the split. This concerns me, and I predict kind of like some rocky turmoil situations ahead for Piojo. I hope, and for the Mexican national team, that he kind of sticks with the team through that and is able to persevere past the mess. But I see some rocky times ahead with that whole split roster situation. And my other prediction for 2015 would be that a team from Guadalajara gets relegated. Just not that. Sorry, Black Lions.
Which one, Jason?
Black Lions going down. Sorry, guys.
Black
you were
Lions.
exciting. But your time's up. It was cool. Like, you came up. You have awesome uniforms. I love seeing you guys. But you're going to break the streak of the newly promoted team staying up. It ends this year, 2015. I'm sorry to say.
Wow. Well, you heard it here from Jason. That he doesn't make resolutions. That's the highlight of what he just said. No, I'm just kidding.
But I brought despair and just grim details for you, so that's something.
All right, Naib, what are your predictions? And you don't have to do resolutions, but what are your predictions?
I'll start. I mean, resolutions are just. I'd say. I mean, travel and try to learn a new language. I think that'll be cool for 2015. But like going to the predictions. I think these are gonna be random predictions I make, but like it's fun. We're having this type of show.
I'm gonna keep track of these.
Vela's gonna. Yeah, so we'll keep a track of these, and they'll stay on this video, and we said it before New Year's Eve. I think Carlos Vela is gonna move to another club in 2015, and I think it's gonna be one of the big clubs in Europe. I think there's a lot of scouts going to San Sebastián to see him closely. He's getting coached by David Moyes, so he'll have a good reference, I think, from a coach like him in England. So I think Carlos Vela will move from Real Sociedad after this season. I think there will be one Mexican or two Mexican. It depends. Mexicans succeeding in a Euro. There will be in a final, either Champions League final or Europa League final. So that would be nice to see a Mexican or Mexicans, because it could be the Dos Santos brothers in the Europa League final. And I think Marc Rosas, who plays for the Black Lions, he got his Mexican citizenship a couple of weeks ago, and I think he will be in one of them. He will be in either Copa America or Gold Cup, I think. I think Piojo has to pay attention. I mean, Marc Rosas was the best passer in the last season. In Liga MX, the best passers was Marc Rosas, Gallito Vázquez, and Gullit Peña. So I think Marc Rosas will wear La Verde in 2015. And I do see what Jason says about the two teams. Mexico doesn't have 46 players that are gonna give their all, and that automatically put El Tri, firm candidate to win the Gold Cup and firm candidate in Copa America, and it just doesn't work that way. I think the team that's gonna be really, really solid is gonna be the Gold Cup. The Copa America, there will be experiments going on there, but I think we'll see what happens. For example, there could be some Europeos in Copa America, like Aquino, who is having an on and off season with Rayo Vallecano. We'll see what happens with Diego Reyes if he, has consistent minutes in the second half of the season. So depending on how many minutes he gets, well, maybe he might end up playing in Copa America. And also, one point that I want to bring up is that in 2007 with Hugo Sanchez, there was a Gold Cup and a Copa America as well. And then, the Gold Cup, I think the U.S. won that one and they lost in the final. and then Copa America they finished in third place. But at that year, in 2007, the Gold Cup was first in June, and then Copa America was in July. This time, it's going to be Copa America in June and Gold Cup in July. And I bring this up because a lot of top teams in Europe start their training in July, their summer camps and everything. So I don't know if that's going to influence in some Europeos, and say, I want to play in June instead of playing in July because it benefits me more. That way they can rest up for training. So we'll see how that deals with. But the changes, I just don't see. I think Pio has to be really prudent with what he says. He can't be saying we're going to win Copa America because I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think, well, we mentioned, the amount of players that we're going to need to have next summer, it's going to be interesting to see, because I know there's going to be a few names, probably maybe even like we mentioned the Copa America squad, which seems to be the one that's going to be more experimental. I'm sure we're going to see a few names that a lot of people don't agree with, and it's going to be, and there's still plenty of time until that tournament. There's still officially one more season. There's still the Clausura that's coming up, but it is going to be, like I said, fascinating to see which players are going to be called up to that tournament. My prediction, I think Diego Reyes is going to. It's not that much. That's not that great a prediction. I think Diego Reyes is going to leave Porto, but I also think eventually Hector Herrera is going to leave as well, but both for opposite reasons. I think Diego Reyes is going to leave obviously because he hasn't given enough time, but I think I know with all the press that Hector Herrera has been given recently, I wouldn't be too surprised if he was to move on to a bigger squad next year. I think Chivas are going to stay afloat. That's not too audacious of a prediction. I think they're just going to scrape by with just like a ridiculous amount of ties, the occasional win, and I think they're just going to play really average soccer. I think Goubel's going to make a difference, but not too much of a difference. It's just going to be really average soccer next season, but it's going to be enough to help them keep them afloat. And I think Mexico is going to win the Gold Cup. I think they just have to. Although the U.S. men's national team, and I do admit when the U.S. men's national team is better, and I think they have been for a little bit, but I think now with the talent that Mexico have, I think they're slightly above the U.S. men's national team at the moment, and I think they'll be able to beat them and then have to face them that playoff game that CONCACAF recently created. So as opposed to the most recent winner of the Gold Cup going to the Confederations Cup, it's now going to be the winner of the two tournaments going up against each other in that playoff game. So we'll be playing against the USA once again, but that won't be next year. That'll be like 3 years from now or 2 years from now. But yeah, those are not too audacious from my part, but those are my predictions. And I guess resolution, I'm gonna run more. I guess since I'm drinking some of this beer, so I'll probably need to be running a little bit more.
Just to add to what you were saying about the Gold Cup, Cesar, the CONCACAF region is interesting right now because, I think when you think about the World Cup, you think about Costa Rica and what they did. But then, they don't have a coach right now. So, that process, I don't know what's going to happen there. Honduras has Pinto now, the architect of the big Costa Rica run. But Honduras was, out of the CONCACAF teams in the World Cup, it was the worst, performer. One thing I think El Tri fans can say with certainty right now is that there's not a CONCACAF national team that has a midfield like El Tri. Guardado's at top level, Gallito is top level, Herrera's top level. You can even add Tecatito in the midfield, and he's at top level. I remember those days with Gerardo Torrado, that you always go back to him. Well, at least now, we have Herrera. We have Herrera playing at a good level.
Yeah. The Torrado, Zavala days. Let's see who else did we have there?
No. It's like the worst moments of 2014 and the biggest letdowns that Zavala wasn't mentioned for that.
I thought
disaster. He left out the field of that game against the U.S. That was a nightmare.
Zavala. Oh, by the way, yeah, right now that we brought up Zavala, Rayados, excellent players that they brought in from Colombia, with Cardona, Mejia, and no Pavon, and this I forget his name, the little one, another Colombian, Charra, that's another Colombian forward. I mean, it's basically Colombian all-star team over there in Monterrey, and I just don't know about the coach that much. Barra was all right, but not as convincing.
Yeah, going on to, about that Monterrey thing, I know Tom gave me a bunch of his answers for everything we just talked about, but I didn't know how to properly intertwine those without making it feel awkward. But but Tom did say, he gave me his answers. He did say that he thinks with the recent signings that Monterrey had, that they will definitely be one of the top teams next year. So Mr. Marshall himself.
There you go.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. I think we went through everything. Went through predictions. Went through surprises or letdowns. I thought about bringing up Anibal Zurdo as one of the letdowns, Jason.
That's fair. That is a letdown. Very gently into a nice cold bath.
But it was a good time chatting with you guys. I think that's the end of our show now. Unless you guys have anything else to add, Jason, Naib, anything else? I know we're gonna have a little bit of a break. I wrote this down. Other than I know Porto is gonna be playing on the 28th against Rio for the Taça de Liga, but I guess just a Portuguese League Cup. But other than that, La Liga isn't starting until next year. Serie A isn't starting until next year. Liga MX isn't starting until the 9th, so we're going to have a little bit of a break here.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good break for some players. I mean, the Dos Santos brothers are in Mexico. I mean, I think all of the Europeos will have the celebrate Christmas in Mexico. But it's interesting. For example, with Giovanni, right now, Giovanni just played his first minutes just against Cádiz in Copa del Rey, and then he played against Deportivo the weekend. Those injuries that just keep on coming. I think with Giovanni, he has to really take care of the kind of initiatives he takes. Taking care of his body, because it usually he just keeps on breaking those muscles of his all the time, and that's bad for El Tri, and that's bad for Villarreal, especially for Villarreal that they're in 3 tournaments in Liga and Cup and also Europa League. So I mean that is something to keep an eye on in 2015, because Giovanni, when he's in full potential, I mean he can be a big difference in El Tri. And when you consider the lack of minutes that Chicharito has had, and the lack of minutes that Raúl Jiménez has had, that's something to keep in mind. And going into the new year, especially looking at the Gold Cup, which is I think the big prize that Piojo wants to obtain in 2015, even if it's not the most lucrative one. I mean, I know a lot of Mexican fans would wish, to have the best 3 at Chile for the Copa America, because of the players that are there, and playing against Messi, playing against Chile with Sampaoli and James from Colombia, but Mexico is stuck in CONCACAF, and I think Mexico has to legitimately, put a hammer and say we're the team that has I think a stability, a type of stability that it didn't have a couple of years ago.
Yeah. Oh, maybe we'll be saying those players in the 2016 tournament, the one that may matter a little bit more, right? No.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
We'll see. That's gonna be a nice tournament, I think. But we still got a 2015 to go through.
All right, Jason. Any last thought? Oh, sorry. No, go for it. Go for it.
Oh yeah, just to close, I mean, to thank the people that have been in the show in 2014. I mean, we had Kim,
that's an excellent point. Yeah.
We had Eric coming in, Johnny, Tom, Martin del Palacio was in, Wiso, thanks, Jason, Joey, Aceves was also sometimes in the show. Am I missing anyone? You, Cesar? No, I mean, we try to give our best here in the show, and if you watched us for the past hour or so, we thank you, and we hope we can give you more shows in 2015.
it's been fun. It's been fun joining forces because I know originally it was me and Jason and Wiso and Jolie who had our own show, and it was Wiso who invited Jason. Jason recommended me, and then we brought Jolie, and then we all. It's glad to be on board. Probably taking more of an active role as opposed to just listening to you guys as I was like going to get groceries and then just like yelling sometimes, sometimes at my radio. All right, Jason, any thoughts? Any thoughts for the year? Anything in general?
Two thoughts of thanks. One going out to Carlos Vela just for all of the fodder for the show that he provided, all the material that he provided. It was great. Endless conversations on Vela were possible, and also Alan Pulido for all of the comic relief that he brought to the show. Yeah. And my wish for 2015 is that we get to watch him play football again, because I love watching him play football, and I want him to be a part of the Mexican national team again. So thanks to him, and we hope the best for you, Alan Pulido.
Yeah, no, I agree. He's definitely an excellent player. I'd rather have him playing again as opposed to making 15-second Instagram clips of him like nodding to his buddy and his buddy giving a cross and him like knocking it into the goal, and he like gives like a big thumbs up. It's like, all right, I guess you're training. Is that training? I guess it's training, man. So, but anywho, thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for any of you guys who have been chatting on the side. Obviously we're the Mexican Soccer Show. Follow us at, do I not know our Twitter? What is our Twitter? Wiso. Naive, isn't it?
It's just at Mex Soccer Show.
It's at Mex Soccer Show. We also have a Facebook, I believe, Facebook page that we update every now and then too, which is just the Mexican Soccer Show. Be sure to follow us on Twitter. And as Wiso says, keep the conversation going. Thank you, everybody who was joining and tagging along, and thank you to you guys. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, and Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to everyone.
Merry Christmas.
You guys.
All right, bye.